got your attention now, don't I?
This is the Black Rifle Coffee Podcast. Prepare to get caffeinated.
All right. Welcome to Free Range. No, this is Black Rifle Coffee Podcast.
I don't even know what podcast they're on right now. My God.
Free Range American Black Rifle Coffee Podcast. I like Black Rifle Coffee Podcast better. I love the logo.
It's all close off the tongue as well. Well, we have a very special guest today, Mr. Zakk Wylde. I have been a fan of your career for a very long time. As you can see, I have lots of guitars behind me, but I will never play in the presence of you because I am not good enough. But I've been following your career for a long time, man, and you do some killer stuff. And glad to have you on the show and have a chat with you.
Right back at you guys. Very cool, man.
Yeah, and Zakk, you've been a huge supporter of the military forever.
Yeah, my dad's a World War II vet, D-Day, Omaha Beach, the whole 9 yards, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, totally, man. So, and it's, it's not just because of, my father and everything like that. I don't know. I just assume everybody is.
Yeah.
My father never told me, not to break the law, not to go to jail. You assume everybody gets that. So,
Yeah.
no, I've never had to tell my kids. I have 4 kids, of the older ones, they understand that, when you want to rule the world and, when it comes to global domination, jail kind of gets in the way of being successful in anything that you want to do,
Pretty much anything, yeah.
But I've never had to explain that to them. I've never had to hit them. I've never had to do anything like that. Like they get it, but that's the way I always look at it. Either you get it or you don't. You know what I mean?
An interesting statement.
It's like instilling a work ethic in somebody. The way I look at it, you're either born a lion or you ain't, and that's it. So you either, I don't know. You can't, if somebody's lazy, you can't force them to, embrace the grind, because it's not part of their DNA. That's that.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that you feel that you shouldn't have to tell people to support the military and kind of be patriotic. And I found ourselves, especially with our company and things that we've done over the years, actually having to have real conversations around why the military and supporting the military is so important. And that it's kind of a weird thing because maybe it's a product of how most of us were probably raised with military parents. It was so just ingrained in the DNA and the lifestyle and the culture of our raising that it was just, that's what you do because it makes sense. Those are the people that provide your freedoms and your safety. And that's something that everyone in America should support. So that's cool to hear that.
Yeah. Without a doubt, man. Oh, totally.
Well, so Zakk, where did this start? When did you first get a guitar in your hand for the first time?
I probably started when I was about 8, but I never applied myself or I didn't put the time in to practice and everything like that. And even the guitar teacher told my parents, he was like, he's not ready yet, because I still wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to go swimming, we played Little League at the time and wiffle ball. And I'd rather hang out with my friends, than sit and practice or put in hours playing. But the whole thing, I came back when I was about 14 because, I was playing football and my guys were like Randy White, Jack Lambert, and obviously Dick Butkus and guys like that. But obviously my whole mindset at that point was I was going to be a middle linebacker and I was either going to go to Ohio State University or Penn State University, which is basically linebacker universities. So I already had a game planned out when I was about 11 years old, 12 years old when I was playing Pop Warner football. And then, actually I thought about even going to Maryland University because Randy White went there and that's where he went to school. So at the time, so I couldn't put the weight on because I didn't know about female growth hormone at the time. So by the time I got to high school football, I remember they were talking about moving me to safety or cornerback or something. I was like, no, if I can't play middle linebacker or outside, anything linebacker, but mostly it was middle linebacker. But the whole thing is, I was like, nah, I couldn't put the weight on at the time. So I remember went over to the football coach's house, Leroy, Mr. Wright, and he was awesome. So but I went over to his house. My mother took me over there, and he was just like, Mr. Wright was saying, well, Zakk, you ought to stick with football and this and that. And I said, yeah, but Mr. Wright, if I can't play middle linebacker, I don't want to play. So he just said, he was like, there was a guitar sitting in the corner of Les Paul. And my mother was like, oh, Mr. Wright, you play? And he goes, nah, kind of noodle on like country songs and stuff like that. I just play chords. My son Leroy is the one that plays. And I remember Leroy coming out at the time, and he was probably the first time I ever saw a guy with long hair who had a Harley Davidson hat on. And I was like, wow. And then next thing I know, when I saw him sit down and play, he was playing all, Sabbath, Zeppelin. And I think at the time, this is when obviously Ozzy started doing stuff with St. Rhodes over there. So he was playing like Crazy Train and everything. But to see somebody's hands doing it in person, I was just completely like blown away. I was instantly, when I just saw that, it just looked like the coolest thing to do. I was just like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. So I ended up taking lessons with Leroy for about a year and a half. And he was a great teacher because he would show me, all the songs that I wanted to learn, but basically, scales and theory and everything like that. But he'd break it down like, if you took a car apart, an engine apart and a transmission, and all the parts are just laying there, you don't know where they go or what they do. But then he just shows how everything connects. And the reason why you need this piece has to go with this piece and this piece. And it's like, and broke it down in simple terms. So it's like, oh, okay. So like the first time I learned how to play the lick to Back in Black, that was like a major breakthrough that I could do. I was like, oh my God, I'm actually playing music. But he was like, do you know why that works? And, and then he showed me how all the pentatonic scales connect and why that works. And it, so which just opened up the whole world of what, with theory and everything like that. So, and, obviously training your ear. So obviously when you hear things now, you can tell whether they're open strings and where the chord voicings are and everything like that. Just learn how to play by ear. But so I studied with him for about a year and a half, which was great. So, but it was, but that's when I was just at 14 years old. I was just like, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
I feel like that's why I've always been a fan of your guitar playing so much, because I bucket musicians usually in two different like genres. They're musical theorists, where they're, more jazz playing. They know the neck of the guitar like nothing. And then they're more like, people that just talk with the guitar, like maybe a Hendrix. But it seems your style of music has kind of combined the two. Is that just kind of what you wanted to do? Or is that because specific people that you looked up to maybe as a kid, like Zeppelin was something I played, and like, Jimmy Page for me was like a revolutionary guitar player, and what he was doing and making sounds with the guitar do you think that was just what you wanted to do with the bands that you ended up joining later in life? Or was it kind of stemming from who was your influences musically at such a young age?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was always a huge Elton John guy. And I mean, that's where I started. So I saw Elton John play Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds on the Sonny and Cher show when I was a kid. And I remember I was just completely blown, like got chills. I remember that, and just the power of music. So, but then I remember like probably when I was around 11 is when I discovered like Black Sabbath. And then after that, it was then, my buddy Scott, the Smiths who lived next door to us. It was great because they had 11 kids. So Scotty was the youngest. He was my buddy. And his oldest brother was 44 years old. All out of the same woman, Mrs. Smith. And then, like, everybody would always ask, are they Catholic? Everyone would go, are they Catholic? And it's like, yes, they are Catholic. But I mean, it's just like, but they had 6 boys, 5 girls. And Scotty was my age. But his other older brother, Dougie, was the one that, him and his buddies, I mean, you used to see the parties that they used to have next door to us. I mean, these summer parties would be insane because, like, let's say that, the 4 of us are brothers. Each one of us has like 3 or 4 kids. So like the family gatherings, the Christmases, the Easters, everything over at the Smith's house, it was like 500 people at this house, man. I mean, it was just like completely out of control with nothing but good times and just great music. Eagles pumping out of the house. I mean, but Dougie and them were like huge deadheads as well. And I always thought it was like the coolest thing that like all their friends, they'd have friends from all over, like coming from Boston, coming from down south and stuff like that. They'd all meet over at Dougie's house in Jersey. And they'd all like road trip it, going to see like the Dead, going up to Boston, and they'd road trip it all the way out to like Chicago or whatever. And I used to, being a kid, I used to go, wow, that's like the coolest thing ever. And like the band, it's bigger than a band. It's this living, breathing thing. And it just, and it just brings people together. And it's like next, and that's what I think is like the coolest thing with Black Label now. I mean, it's just like, now we're about 22 years now, but I mean, the whole thing is where it's actually somebody's has the colors on, or they're wearing a, Black Label hat or whatever. It's just like you can meet them in a bar, and then you're like, oh, what's going on, man? You dig Black Label. And then they start talking. Next thing you know, 8 years from now, he's the best man at your wedding. You know what I mean? So it's just, and it's like, how'd you guys hook up? It's like, oh, dude, we met in a bar in Boston. You know what I mean? The next thing you know, you guys have that common bond and whatever, so aside of the Yankees and the Red Sox. But I mean, aside of that, everything else is cool.
How do you go from being 11 years old, listening to Black Sabbath, and then finding yourself for the first time on stage with Ozzy?
Well, no, it was crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, it was pretty mind blowing. But I mean, but the whole thing is, I remember playing, we were just playing in the local, in the bar. I mean, it's this place called Close Encounters in Jersey, and remember we were probably playing there on a Friday night with about like 8 of our friends and 3 employees in there, and it's just like there was one guy, and that's being generous. But I mean, but the whole thing is, this guy Dave Feld came up and he was like, "Hey, Zakk, man, do you ever think about auditioning for Ozzy?" And I was like, "I don't know. Did you just have lunch with Robert Plant and Jimmy Page?" I'm like, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how you get in touch with Ozzy Osbourne. So, but he was like, "No, my buddy Mark Weiss is a photographer. And Mark is the one that took all the famous shots of like Ozzy with the tutu on and the boxing gloves and everything like that." So Mark's this, legendary photographer. So he said, "Well, Zakk, if you just make a tape, you can get it to me. I can give it to Mark, and you can see if you can get it to Mrs. O." And he goes, "I can't promise you anything, but so I'm
looking for a new guitarist during that time to replace." Okay.
Yeah, Jake was no longer in the band.
Right.
So I ended up, recording some stuff and a bunch of Ozzy tunes and stuff. And then I remember my sister Amy took a Polaroid of me on my parents' porch at my parents' house in Jersey. So ended up getting a picture. And I remember, and the crazy thing is, Ozzy, when I came out there and auditioned, Oz was like, "Have I met you before?" And I was like, "I don't know. Maybe he saw me at either any of the gigs at the Bark at the Moon tour or whatever. He saw me under the mezzanine. Also, all of us going nuts under the mezzanine." I just go, "No." And he goes, "Oh, okay. Well, Zakk, whatever you do, play with your heart." And I said, "Okay." And he said, because I had crapped my pants just meeting him. He said, "And do me a favor, change your trousers and make me a ham sandwich and go light on the mustard." But the whole thing is, and which I've been doing for the last 30 plus years. But the whole thing is, but he said that picture, because he goes, "Well, where have I met you before?" And then he just goes, "Zakk, out of all the boxes and boxes of audition tape," he's like, I don't go through any of that stuff. So he said, "But your picture was sitting on the kitchen table." And I remember looking at it and I go, "Oh, look, that kid must really love Randy Rhoads." And that's all I thought about it, which I do. So, but anyway, so he said, "Well, after you get done crapping your pants, though, go make me that ham sandwich and go light on the mustard." So, but and the rest is history, man.
That's great. I think probably the picture did well because that's something that's always said about you, because primarily I always look at guitarists as kind of like, a little more feminine, and they're like really skinny guys, but you're just this giant beard. And as you kind of adapted that look, it was just so cool to see as a younger guy, like, oh, you can like lift weights and be tattooed and be a badass. And I think it's a little more prevalent now, but at the time, at least me growing up, it was very like feminine looking guitarist. And you were just like this epitome of like, man, I'm like, yeah, I can break shit and like throw a sledgehammer and then like shred some E minor pentatonic. Let's go, So
exactly, man.
Yeah.
So no, totally, man. But but mind you, when I first joined the band with the poofy hair and everything, it was just I remember when we played Wormwood Scrubs Prison when we were there. I go, "I better pass the audition. I'm the closest thing to Farrah Fawcett that these fellas are ever going to see for a long time."
I remember somebody saying Zakk Wylde's wallet chain is rated to lift a shipping container.
I'll put it this way: we definitely, it's definitely one of the our merch items from Home Depot. That's for sure. You know, people are just like, "What's the deal with the chain wallet?" I said, "So you know, either you're going to pummel somebody if they try taking your wallet, or you know, just in case the tour bus breaks down, we can tow it with a chain wallet." You know,
that's great.
Well, I have a pretty historical story with you guys. Is, you know, that guitar I just showed you is for one of my best friends that retires on Friday after 20 years in Air Force Special Operations.
Oh, wow.
And
Congratulations.
The significance with that was one of the first military videos that I made and edited was for him after he got back from a deployment in 2006, and he wanted all the footage cut to Junkies of Genocide.
Oh, so, wow.
Where I cut my teeth in making the very videos that we've grown our company on was to cutting a video to Junkies of Genocide.
Oh, very, very cool.
This guy that retires.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. That's killing.
I think that's a staple back in like the 2006, 7, 8 era when you would, you know, make deployment compilations of being on target and blowing down doors. It's always the like, you know, a Crazy Train or some, you know, some iconic song. Yeah. And that would be, it made it seem so much more like culturally appropriate to like just put this hard rock music to deployment. I think everybody that's been in the military has probably had some deployment pictures or videos cut to your music and licks you've played. So
a lot of terrorist killing's been done.
Yeah. I mean, we used to do it all the time, man. Like Black Label Society. I mean, you name the band and like we're in the back of the Striker just like dun, dun, and just rocking out like, all right, we're about to go on target and put bullets in bad people's faces. And it was very motivating. It's like cool, a pre-workout.
Good. Anything I could do to help.
What would you say out of all of the things you've done, because you've done solo stuff as well, and I think people don't know that you have a voice of an angel as well. But what has been kind of like your favorite thing to do? Because, you know, coming into like, you know, Black Sabbath or Ozzy and that stuff, it's like you're playing probably other things you haven't been as as much in the writing process. Like what really stands out to you when you go on stage? Like I'm sure they all have their different like benefits. But what is to you like that you just love to do right now, currently in your career? Like, is it solo stuff? Is it like, what is it?
No, I mean, for me, it's the whole thing. I mean, it's just like, it's just, you know, it's just the same thing as working out. You know, I mean, whatever. I mean, there isn't any body part. I mean, whether you're working legs or you're working back, or you're working chest, or you're working arms, it's all good. You know what I mean? I don't, you know, dread any of it. I mean, like some people don't like the studio, you know, they just like the studio. They don't like touring. Some people can't stand making the records and they just like the touring. So, I mean, I enjoy the whole process. I mean, like even when I played Pop Warner, we played Little League. When I was a kid, I loved the practices and I loved the games. You know, where some people are like, dude, I can't stand the practice. You know what I mean? I just like the games. So but I enjoy the whole process. So, you know, like even, you know, with the new record, I mean, I go into it each time when we're making a new record as if it's the next season. You know what I mean? Whether we had just won the Super Bowl, we were that close, or we had an okay season, or it was horrendous. I just look at it's the new year and what the possibilities are going to be. You know what I mean? But it's always positive, you know, when you're going into it, you know, so I just enjoy, I'm blessed, man. I enjoy the whole thing, man. So it's just, you know, whether I'm playing with the boss or we're doing a Generation Axe thing and I'm playing with the fellas, or the Experience Hendrix thing, or Zakk Sabbath, or when we're Black Label rolling. And I love the whole thing, man. There's none of it that I don't like. I mean, like even when we're, you know, like when we're touring, I've never said, man, I can't wait until I get home. You know what I mean? Like I love doing what I'm doing. Like every night when we get up on stage, I thank the good Lord every night. So it just, I love the whole process. And when I'm home, I love being home, you know, with the kids and the dogs and you know, my wife and the whole thing. Like that is the vacation.
How have you kind of kept that kind of mental conditioning because, you know, for I think a lot of us here and with videos and music and things that we've done, sometimes when a hobby and it's what you love and it's, you know, artistically venting, that can sometimes, if there's requirements and posting schedules, it becomes something that almost feels like work. How have you kind of just kept that and had such a good outlook on being blessed? Like, I am so stoked to be able to do what I freaking love and my dream as a kid after you weren't going to be a linebacker. Is it just, you're just thankful every day kind of thing? Or
yeah, I mean, put it this way: if the four of us own the New York Yankees, I mean, it's more every day we wake up, we're talking about we own the stadium. It's just talking about how we can get parking and transportation into the stadium and out of it better. I mean, just little things like that. And then getting because now that we have the stadium, we want to make it this living, breathing thing because we have condos set up in the stadium. We have restaurants. We have movie theaters set up in the stadium, bowling alleys. It's this living, breathing thing. And we're just constantly talking about all that. Then we're talking about going to check out some kid pitcher from high school that's going to be the next Nolan Ryan. So we're going to go see him and meet his parents or whatever. And then you got whatever trades we got going on and how we can fit this into the budget for the whole season and everything like that. So it's like every day we have something going on. And I always tell, when parents are, I'll be talking with some kids and they're like, do you have any advice or anything? I go, yeah, make the band your job. I go, that's it. That's your passion. You don't want to have some crummy job the rest of your life. And it's like, of course not. And it's like, yeah, you want to play music. I said, so everything should revolve around the band, like with Black Label. Everything revolves around that. Because if you're not practicing and you're not doing that, then everything revolves around, if we're not lifting weights and we're not training for the Olympia, we have, Steve Kuko, he's a Black Label brother down in Texas. So Steve's, he was sixth place in Mr. Olympia, right? You know Stevie. Steve's awesome. So he's another great Patriot. So, I mean, the whole thing is this. So, but Steve, if he's not lifting, he has the Coop Classic and he has all these other things going on because he's a promoter for his own events and everything like that. So everything is revolved around his career and it's what he has passion for and what he loves. So, when you wake up in the morning, you should look forward to doing that. So, that's why I always tell kids, make the band your little mom and pop shop. And then you started it off as a coffee house, just like Black Rifle. You start off small and you just keep building and building and building and building until you create your own empire. That's how you do it.
Yeah, you've reached a level of expertise in your field, Zakk, that just very few people will ever get to that point. Outside of building that foundation that you keep building, like what would you say has been your greatest key to success within this whole journey?
Well, I don't know. I mean, my whole thing is like with anything. I mean, like starting Black Rifle or with Death Wish, with Valhalla Java and everything like that. And the band. I mean, we started with Black Label. We're sitting here playing in front of, like you said, 5 people and 3 people are working behind the bar, and 2 people are shooting, playing pool while we're playing. I mean, that's how Black Label started out.
How every band starts. It's the first audience is your closest friends.
But you have to enjoy the process, you know what I mean, of building it until you have it so it's paying the light bills. You know what I mean? So the whole thing is, until you start off small and then you're playing the Royal Albert Hall. You know what I mean? So the whole thing is, like you said, once again, I don't look at it as work. I mean, you either accept the grind and it's not a grind. I mean, you just look forward to, achieving the next. If you bench press with 500 pounds, the next thing when we get you into the next, bench press competition is 505. And then just little small steps, you know what I mean? Until next thing you know, it was a big deal when you crossed 315 pound bench barrier. And now you're up to 800 pounds. We were all there when you started crossing each plateau, but they were just little steps along the way. So, I mean, you apply that to everything in life. You really do. I mean, it's just like, I put it this like even when I played Pop Warner, like the coaches, Mr. Wright and everything like that. When they tell you when you were younger and you have great people in your life, I had great coaches and teachers like that when I was just a little kid. But the whole thing is, people always ask me, what did you learn from your father and you learned from Ozzy? And I go, nothing that I didn't already know. I go, but all they did was they just verified it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They wouldn't have to be rah-rah guys. They just showed up. No matter how banged up my father was, no matter how banged up Ozzy is, they always answer the bell. Always. And they don't complain about it either. Just get up there and do it. And then the sooner we get this done, the sooner we can go home. You know what I mean? We can all sit here and complain about it. You know what I mean? It's just like we could be in a huddle and I'm looking at you. I'm going, can you, and you're sitting there, you got a compound fracture. You got a bone sticking out of your leg. And I'm like, you okay? You're like, no, I'm not. But what is that going to help if I keep complaining about it? We need to stop these guys. It's 4th and goal. You know what I mean? So it's just like, as soon as we stop them, then I'll sit down. But I mean, that's, and I can't even just say it's that, that's the World War II generation with my father. All the fellas I roll with, that's the way they roll. That's the mentality. So, you know what I mean? So, otherwise you don't belong in the huddle. It doesn't need to be said. You know what I mean? So just everybody knows what needs to get done and you just do it.
Yeah. I love that. I feel that that's like that mindset's very synonymous with people that have continued success and long careers because they're not out there just to be famous. They're not out there for the money. They actually enjoy the craft or the artistry and whatever they're doing. And you got like Ozzy or you see that, even from 20 years ago to today, it's like the same energy on stage, the same performance, and they're into it. It's not like you're checking a box, and it's
just like you said, Matt, and like he's saying here, and I'm noticing it now. Like the common denominator is none of us have a stopping point. We didn't say, hey, once we get to here, we're all done. Like we're still going.
Yeah, totally.
Well, if you really enjoy it, you don't really want to stop the whole process anyway, And I feel like that's what lazy people want to attribute, like, that there's super talented people are just that way because they're blessed or, they've been touched by the fucking piss of the unicorn or something like that. But it really, like, the more of these conversations you have, it's a whole bunch of work ethic stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, it really is true. But I mean, I've always said lions hang out with other lions and they attract other lions. And then the hyenas, they get weeded out. They just do. And they don't last. You know what I mean? So, I could say from when the beginning the band started, the people that were around and who's here. You know what I mean? So I just think that's the way it is in life. Like you said, you can't instill a work ethic in anybody. You either get it or you don't. And that's that. It's just like either you're going to put the time in, but I mean, like even play. I mean, I play every day, but I mean, the whole thing is, I tell everybody, I go, when kids are playing video games, I go, when you're playing video games, you enjoy playing them. You're not practicing playing video games. You're just having a good time with it. And you keep getting to this one level and you're like, man, I keep this one spot. This one guy keeps getting me every time. It's just like, and when I get to that level, I got to look out for him on the left side. Then I can get in, then I can do it. I go, you're having a good time while you're playing. I go, it's the same thing playing guitar or any instrument you play. It's just like you put the time in and then you just keep nice and slow and you get better and better and better and better. And then finally you got it. So, but like you said, when you're playing guitar, my parents never told me I had to practice ever. I'd get home from school and it'd be like 2:30 in the afternoon. I wouldn't, the only time I'd come out of that room was to take a piss or a crap. And then I'd go back in the room and I'd start practicing. So I'd go till midnight. And then after that, there was times where I'd go to school, with not even sleeping throughout the whole day. I'd go to school and I'd be like dying while I was in school. But I mean, I'd have my guitar mags in my books, I got my history book or I got, my math book or whatever. And I'm reading about Randy Rhoads or John McLaughlin or Al DiMeo or all my favorite guys, Frank Marino and everything like that. So, like you said, you either got to be committed to the project or that's that, man.
It's just a little off the wall question, but I'm saying what is in your memory the hardest guitar lick or riff that you've had to learn? Because I've been in those spots where I'm like, this isn't fun. I do not want to play. Like sweeps are that for me, and it drives me insane. And I want to huck my guitar across the room, but I'm like, no, play it at half speed and then start speeding it up. Like, do you have like one of those memories as far as like one of the songs you've done throughout your career where you were just like, oh my God, all right, this is a little grindy? Because you could say you enjoy it all the time, but sometimes
nothing to the point where like you said, otherwise you just break it down and you play it slow, and then each day you come back, you're a little bit faster. So no, not really. I mean, like you said, like when I could play that, the lick to Back in Black when I was just beginning, I mean, that was a big breakthrough. And then the intro lick to Hey Joe, down, 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 down. I was like, oh wow, I could play that. So I mean,
By the way, random. That was one of my favorite things to learn the part in Hey Joe that goes dan 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 dan.
The chromatic climb. Yeah, because now you can sound like the record. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
I've got a question. You're one of the most advanced guitar players there are. Have you made any discoveries like over the years that the music wide people recognize, like in theory or anything like that?
Yes, that I can clear a room out within a matter of seconds. That's what JD always says I can do. So the whole thing is, as soon as I start playing, like if you're like, Zakk, I just want to drink a delicious cup of Black Rifle and read this book I've been waiting to get. This room is crowded. I go, I can take care of that. Let me just play for a couple seconds here. It'll be empty. So, I mean, it's just like, how like when people say, like this guy reinvented this or this guy did that or whatever. I go like, really, at the end of the day, like Angus Young doesn't need to reinvent anything. Just write good songs. Like the Beatles don't need to reinvent anything because then you're constantly searching and this and that. I mean, like Eddie Van Halen, like just reinvented everything. You had Hendrix, and then when King Edward came around, but like even Ed said, he goes, I wasn't searching to reinvent all this stuff. It was just like I kind of stumbled upon it, and I was just kind of like, oh, this is cool. Let me see what I can do with this. And then next thing you know, he's off to the races with it. But I mean, you don't sit around going, I'm going to create a whole new breed of music and this and that. You're just taking your influences and everything like that, and you're just kind of like expanding on it. And then you end up with where you're at. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's just, I think with all great musicians and stuff like that, I think that's where they end up. I mean, if you ask Alan Holdsworth, who's one of the most mind-blowing guitar players of all time, you ask any guitarist, we all love Alan Holdsworth. So, I mean, but the whole thing is...
Psst. Caleb, did you know with Black Rifle Coffee's Coffee Club subscription, you can get fresh coffee shipped to you every month? What? You don't even have to go to the store. Whoa. You don't even have to leave your bed.
What? Wow. How did you get in here? You might want to go ahead and join the Black Rifle Coffee Club subscription before one of these guys shows up at your place.
How did you come upon the way you approach scales and the way, because it's so musical, and he's just like, no, to me, it's just normal. It just makes sense. I've seen when they've asked Alan Holdsworth all these things, he's just like, no, to me, he's like, what about this? Don't you understand? You know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, the way he views the fretboard is like completely unbelievable. But I mean, but he's not going out of his way. He's just going, I'm just doing what comes naturally to me.
Have you seen any like recent, like young up and comers that have kind of stuck out to you? Because I mean, you have YouTube now, you have a lot more resources than back in the day with the internet. You have, automated tablatures and all these things. But is there somebody recently that kind of stands out?
Yeah, like when we do the Generation X thing, Tosin Abasi. Like Tosin's out there. I mean, I know Tosin's he's not one of the new kids now. I mean, because, Tosin's been doing it for a bit now. But like same thing with Tosin. No, he digs Holdsworth and everything like that. But like his take on his view of the fretboard and everything like that is phenomenal as well. And I mean, it's amazingly unique. But he's using all his influences that he likes and expanding upon them and coming out with his own thing. So it's just like making chicken piccata, and then instead of using salt, you're like, Zakk, I'm going to use capers on it. I like that better. It's kind of like, it's like salt, but I mean, I like the taste of it even better. And we're like, how'd you come up with that? And you're like, no, I just saw it one day. We were sitting around. I just put them on. I was like, these kind of taste salty. I'll only put them on there. So, just like you stumbling upon accidents, man. You know what I mean? That a lot of it has to do with that.
And so Zakk, like, all of us are fairly close with Zakk Osbourne, and we've got to hang out with Ozzy a few times. We know that he's notorious for like reoccurring pranks. Like our friend, he ordered a birthday cake for him all 3 meals a day for 13 weeks straight. Like, is there any that he would mess with you on?
Oh, a Jackie boy? I mean, but Oz would be hilarious, man. I mean, especially during the drinking days and everything like that. I remember, Oz with Bobby Thompson, God bless his soul. But BT had been with Ozzy, since the 70s and everything like that, and then all the way through until when I was there. But I remember, with BT, remember like Oz would have these doom dots, so we'd all be going out drinking. He'd put these doom dots in your drink. He'd be out cold. And like I remember with BT,
what's a doom dot?
Just I guess either whatever concoctions the boss had around, whether they were pain pills or I don't know what it was.
Okay, just yeah.
Put it this way, but you'd be out cold. I remember with Bobby, shaved his one eyebrow off, shaved the top of his head, and it was just like Bobby woke up the next day and just looked in the mirror. And I remember there's one time there was another guy, Pete Mertens, who actually took care of St. Rhodes. He was his guitar tech at the time. Pete was with BT, and Oz had shaved Bobby's eyebrow, shaved the top of his head, shaved like the side of his beard or something like that. And Pete's reading the newspaper in the morning. Bobby comes out and he goes, "Look at me. Look at what he's done to me. Look at me." And Pete just had the newspaper up, and because he knew all about it, he goes, "I can't look. I can't look." He just wouldn't look at him. But Ozzy'd be doing that all the time. I remember when I first joined the band, I'd be putting all my guitar cases up against the door because I didn't have a lock on the door. I remember when we were first at the Beatles, we were in this converted horse ranch, and it was converted into like a living quarters with a rehearsal place and a kitchen. I remember we were doing No Rest for the Wicked there, my first album with them. So I was like, 19, 20 years old. And I'm hanging out in there. I remember putting all my guitar cases up against the door. So if he came in at night, I'd hear him. You know what I mean? So I was like,
you had a modified tripwire. It was an early alarm system. You're like, you're not shaving this beard, dude, or my hair. Don't touch it.
Comedy, man.
I don't think a lot of people realize that haven't been around musicians and touring, because it is such a close niche family, specifically if you're on a tour bus and you're in maybe a newer band. But I mean, you are like a cohesive, degenerative family almost, because you're living on top of each other. You're on the road every single night. And I'm sure the stories and memories from touring are just absolutely insane, because the bands that we've hung out with and been a part of touring, it's a pretty wild experience, because you have so many different personalities. You have maybe the guy that has the girlfriend that doesn't drink, and then you have the crazy drugs party guys. It's just this weird conglomeration of different personalities all in one tour.
I mean, without a doubt. I mean, but the whole thing is, and that's the big thing too. You got to be around people you enjoy being around, for sure. I mean, that's a huge part of it, man. But the thing is this, I remember, the early Black Label days, the Animal House years when everyone was berserking. It was like, it wasn't just the band. I mean, it was the whole Doom crew as well. So, it was the Doom crew, the band. It was completely Animal House. It was like you had Bluto, you had D-Day, you had it was just completely out of control. It's just everybody, the amount of booze. I remember it was on the One Oz Fest. And I remember, what was there? 12 of us in the sub. And then I remember, High Command called, and the Immortal Beloved, we get this call, because she was at the accountants. She was just like, "Well, I guess there's a problem. The berserkers are shut off." I go, "Well, what's the matter?" She goes, "We just got the credit card statement in." I was like, "Well, what's the problem?" She goes, "Oh, there's a problem." And I go like this, I go, "Well, how bad could it be?" And she goes, "Well, why don't you take a guess?" And this was on the business card, the American Express, right? The corporate card. I'm like, because it would be the four of us rolling in every day, and we'd hit another liquor store, and just, we're going in with pallets now, of just what we need for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is, just imagine the four of us. We're just rolling in, and we got the rest of the fellows are out in the sub. So I mean, the whole thing is, it's just like, I go, well, how bad could it be? And she's just like, well, I go, what, 10 grand, 15 grand? I mean, we'd been out for almost 3 weeks, and I was just like, there's silence on the other end. I go, 20 grand? And you got to remember, you got to throw in some Ruth's Chris Steakhouse meals on this.
Of course.
Some Morton's. And,
so we made it Ruth Chris
yes,
steak.
Without a doubt. So the whole
of course,
thing is,
I get it.
Totally. So I'm like, well, how bad could it be? We're about 15 grand, 20 grand? I go, 25. I go, 30? And she's like, silence on the other end. I go, come on. I go, 35. 40? 45? And it was like 51 grand.
Oh,
in the 57. Yeah, so there you go. I just correction. 57 grand
in 3 weeks.
In under 3 weeks. Yeah. So
we need to call the Guinness Book of World Records. That might be a record.
A good time. I go, my liver can attest to that, and my pancreas.
Totally worth it.
Yes.
Well, I think the term, but my experience the last few years, the term party like a rock star doesn't exist anymore. Like some of these new bands, they don't do it.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is, I remember when, when the whole pain pill thing started happening. I was just always just a booze guy. I was just beer. And then like if the four of us were sitting up in front of the sub driving, we had like a 15-hour drive. It'd be the four of us up front drinking Crown Royal and ginger ale, and there's another and a beer. So I mean, we'd have either Beck's, and you guys would be like, you're sitting in the captain's chair. You're like, Zakk, do me a favor, go grab me another Crown and ginger or whatever. So I get you another highball or whatever, and then we just sit up there and solve the problems of the world, listening to great music. As the world goes by. So that was great times. So you're in $1 million Irish pub rolling down the road. So, I mean, it's just like, it doesn't get any better than that. So, I mean, the whole thing is, exactly. So, but the whole thing is, I mean, when the pain pill things, we'd be going out and like some of the fellas would be going, I go, guys, what do you want to drink? I go, Jack and Coke, a Beck. So what do you want? It's like, no, Zakk, just give me a water, bro. Water. I'm like, because I'd end up knowing that like some of the fellas are already about 18 beers ahead of me because they're, whether they're on Percocets, Dilatas, or I don't know, whatever the guys are taking, whatever, pain pills and stuff like that. So that the big thing is don't mix any booze if you're taking pain pills, don't mix it with alcohol. And that was the big thing. And I remember, a couple guys I know that died in the sub just from taking pain pills and booze because you're mixing the two of them. And they're both, depressants. So then just go to bed and your heart stops. Just do. And you don't even know. You're out. And we check our buddy in the morning, he's gone. So yeah, that was the big thing with I remember because I didn't know. I mean, I don't take any pain pills. So, it's just like, even when I bang myself up, if the doctor gave me any pain pills, I'd never take them because that means I couldn't drink. So I'd rather be hurting and as long as I can get a beer, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'll skip the pain pills. I don't need them. So, but the rest of the guys were going, hey, jackass, if you ain't taking them, you can toss them over this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. So
has it been go ahead. Sorry.
Between the pain pills, the booze, the Viagra, and whatever else was floating around out there. Yeah, it was great. That would always be great, man.
Lots of Viagra.
But whenever the girls were coming out, it was hilarious. Like, if you went Viagra, you were like a crack dealer, bro. I mean, it was just like, all the guys were like, hey, Zakk, do me a favor. Hook me up. Susan's coming out, bro. Oh, yeah, no problem. Send you in with 100 milligrams to secure black label victory. He attacked like Genghis Khan and his merry men.
I feel like there should be a song about that, like a groupie song called "To Victory." I'm sure, what is it? Steel Panther.
It is Genocide Junkies, and the new one on the new record, Destroy and Conquer. So there you go.
Yeah. All right. What's your opinion on like kind of how the music industry has changed so much? I'd venture to say probably like in the last like 15 years, at least from my perception. I mean, because like rock kind of died out a little bit, country got big, and then pop, and then now it seems there's these like pockets. There's not one necessarily huge genre. It seems that there's so many. It's not like back in the days when Metallica would play in front of, 100,000 people or would name the number or something like that. It seems that happens in Europe a little bit, right? But not so much in the States. And I'm excluding COVID and kind of what's happened with that. But it doesn't seem like it's... do you feel that on your end, or is it still because...
I think like this. It's just like, I think, looking at like from Ozzy's perspective and Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, you got to remember. So like when the Beatles were rolling and the Stones, when they were putting movies out, that was kind of like, that's what bands were doing. That was their social media, if you really think about it. So, Beatles putting movies out. I mean, first it was Elvis putting the movies out, and then all of a sudden, then the Beatles are doing it. Then, Zeppelin put The Song Remains the Same out. And then, so that was the kind of, that was basically Instagram and Twitter and YouTube for really when, you have a movie, and then you got to remember when MTV started, it was kind of like, well, I'm sure like Ozzy and Robert Plant and Jimmy Page were like, what the hell's this? It's just like, well, basically it's like a 3-minute commercial for your song. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, okay. But it's just like, do we have to do this? I mean, we never had to do this stuff. And it's just like, well, I mean, it's probably good. If we can do a 3-minute commercial for Black Rifle, we might as well do it. You know what I mean? It's only an advertisement so people know about the coffee. So, I mean, so then you had that. And then it kind of just morphed into where we're at now, with social media and YouTube and everything like that. I mean, put it this way, back when I was rolling before Ozzy I started with the Boss in 87, 88. If you didn't make it by the time you were 30 years old, you could basically sell all those guitars that are sitting behind you and the dream is over. Whereas now, you have social media. You can literally be your own boss, your own label, your own merch guy, your own everything. Like you don't need to, basically then it was like, if we don't get a record deal, we'll never amount to anything. You know what I mean? Now you can be your own mom and pop shop. You know what I mean? Which is, I got to be honest with you, which is pretty awesome.
Pretty cool.
So you can be your own boss. You know what I'm saying? Which is,
I feel like that
is the best because that's freedom. That freedom, you cannot put a price tag on that. Whether you have your own little apartment, it doesn't matter. It's yours. And no one can tell you how to decorate it. No one can tell you what, you got to take you down your Led Zeppelin posters. No one can tell you anything. It's yours, man. And I don't care if it's the size of this and you got to sleep on a small little cot. It doesn't matter. It's yours. And that freedom you cannot take that away. You don't have anybody telling you what kind of songs you got to write. You don't have anybody telling you what, I'm just saying it's that, that you can't put a price tag on that. So, and that's what everybody kind of has nowadays, where you can build your own little band on social media and make it happen.
Zakk, do you enjoy that process of making music videos to accompany the audio?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the new one that we just did, the Set You Free type thing. I just, I just wanted to emulate my high school prom back from 1985 in Jackson Memorial High School, equipped with bath salts and the whole 9 yards. So, but I mean, yeah, the videos, I have a blast doing them. You know what I mean? Like I said, like I tell kids, make the band, have a hand in everything. You know what I mean? Like if we own the Yankees, we have a hand in how we want the grass cut. You know what I mean? Down to everything that's in that stadium, aside of the trades and the free agency and everything. So yeah, just I enjoy, like you said, I enjoy every little thing of it.
I think that's a really good point because social media has provided a lot more independent artists to kind of do exactly what they want. And the labels don't necessarily monopolize, what's coming out as much as they used to, because now you can essentially upload to like a TuneCore or something from an independent artist standpoint and publish your music, get distribution. And then you're not having people say, hey, we don't like you in white shirts, Matt. You got to wear red shirts. And actually, we want you to grow your hair out. I mean, sometimes in labels.
Put it this way. I mean, like with the labels, how it was us against the label. It should never be that way anyways. I mean, the bottom line is if the four of us are running Black Label and, Black Rifle Records, I mean, the whole thing is this. We want the bands to succeed. You know what I mean? So like the bigger you guys are, the bigger we are. You know, and the more, you know, that nice, gorgeous Malibu house that you just bought, you know, right on the beachfront property, you know, these bands, the bigger they are, it's better for everybody. So, I mean, the whole thing is you don't want bands to fail. So, I mean, but the whole thing is when labels are asking certain things of the artists, they're just going, we just think this would help. You know what I mean? That's all. It's not that they don't believe in you. It's just like, no, guys, we're just thinking, you know, telling Tom Brady, I just think instead of throwing downfield all the time, maybe throw to Gronk once in a while. That's all. You know what I mean? Maybe that might help. Like on third down, or maybe on first down. Maybe they're thinking we're going deep. Just throw to the tight end. Boom, there's 8 yards. You know what I mean? That's all. We're just making suggestions. You know, we're not telling you what you got to do. You know what I mean? So
good point.
Yeah, I think it's they. You know, because if we make a vested interest in somebody, we want them to succeed. That's all.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I do like
it's all, like you said, it's all perspective. It's all how you look at it, man. It really is.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk to you because that you have a very good perspective on all that. And I mean, I think people have been swayed to say, you know, the labels are the big bad boogeyman, but obviously they've been very beneficial for people. And they
think about it. We're investing a lot of money in you, and we want you to succeed. We're just thinking, you know, if this could help, maybe, you know, get you to the next level. That's all.
Have you always been a Les Paul guy?
Yeah, I mean, when I was, because obviously Leroy played one, my guitar teacher, and then obviously St. Rhodes played one, Jimmy Page played one, the guys in Thin Lizzy. You know, then seeing pictures of Eric Clapton with one, Keith Richards. You know, it just seemed like all the classic guys and the guys that I loved. And I saw they would all be playing Les Pauls. You know what I mean? So, and I just always thought, you know, Les Paul just looks so classy. I just, you know, I love the look of it. So, but I was always more of a custom guy than a standard guy. I love the standards too, but the customs just, you know, go more of a solid machine. So, you know.
I don't own a Les Paul, but I'll have to get one now. I promise you that.
Yeah, the Pauls, I mean, but, you know, and it's so funny because you have, like Slash is just a standard guy and he loves them. You know, he plays customs every once in a while, but I mean, like Jimmy Page, he has customs too, but he's a standard guy. You know what I mean? Whereas and Randy Rose was a custom guy. So, I mean, you know, but it's just like Fender guys, you know, you have, I have my buddies that are Telly guys to the grave. Yeah. And then I got my other friends that are Strat guys to the grave. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you give them a Telly, they're like, get that thing away from me, man. And the same thing with my friends that I play Telly. So like, nah, no thanks.
Right. What am I? I'm not Brad Paisley. Get that Telecaster out of my hand. Yeah, that's great. What exactly. So what projects do you have going on right now you'd want to kind of inform the audience about, whether it's new music?
We got the new album. Yeah, we got the new album out, right? You know, it's going to be coming out on Black Friday. You know, everything's got to be black, but none more black. Black Friday, black. You know, I remember when I painted the studio black, right? The guest house. We turned it. It's a studio, right? The Black Vatican. I painted black. My wife's like, "You're joking." I go, "Well, I'm not in purple label society. I'm in black label society."
What do you expect from me over here?
Exactly. And she goes, "What are you, 12?" I go, "No, I'm 13. And don't ever insult me like that again." So I'm a teenager now. I'm a man. I can do what I want. Yeah, no. So but no, it's coming out on Black Friday. I guess whatever that is. I guess right after Thanksgiving there. So November 26th. The tour. November 28th. What is it? I think it's November 26th. You're right. Say, and I offer all that. You thought I couldn't read, but anyway. So the whole thing. So the thing is, the album comes out in November. Doom Crew Incorporated comes out November 26th. But the tour starts, obviously October 1st, and we run through November 28th. Then we take a little break, and then we do the Black Label Christmas run from New Year's Eve, from the 26th of December to New Year's, you know, obviously New Year's Eve with the Arizona chapter. And I think we're supposed to be rolling with the boss in a Black Label Ozzy boot camp around, I guess, the first week of January. That's the game plan right now. And then, so that's what we got going on. And then, I guess
Awesome.
more touring with Black Label over in Europe and everything like that, seeing how, the COVID thing's going on. You know how that goes.
Yeah. Is this going to be the first time you're back on tour since COVID hit?
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember the last show we did was with the Milwaukee chapter out there with at the rave. And I remember that was the last gig we did. And I remember, all of us looking at each other going, well, we'll be back at it in 2 weeks, a month? This is before everybody realized, the big, what was going on. So we just figured out, well, we'll go home for a month. They'll, sort this out, whatever, and then everybody will be back out. And then next thing you know, 18 months later, here we are. And, now I think it was from the last show to when we did Sturgis, and then we did another gig in Montana, and then we just did the Blue Ridge Rock Festival in Virginia. We did those 3 shows. Those were, but as we got up on stage, I'm looking at you guys, you're looking at me. It's like, didn't we just do this 2 weeks ago? It didn't feel like 2 years ago. Basically almost. So so I just think even with this COVID thing, I think it gives everybody a chance to reconnect with their families and say, because once the grind gets going, you kind of lose sight of that. You know what I mean? So, whether you can see your parents more, your Zakk, I was home. I got a chance to see my grandmother. She was pretty old, and I got a chance to spend some quality time with her before she passed away or whatever. You know what I mean? So even Joey, I remember Joey was just like, man, Zakk, I was always hoping I'd be home because my dogs were getting old and they'd been with us forever. And it just like with COVID, he was actually home and he, because he had to be home with and he has 3 sons now. So, and the dogs passed away, 2 of them. So, but he was just like, Zakk, if I was on the road, I would have never had that quality time with him, or been home when it happened. You know what I mean? So, but I think for a lot of people, it just, they being able to be with their families and spend actually some quality time was a cool thing. And then, because I think once the grind gets going again, it's going to be, it's back to the grind. Yeah. So I think people are going to go, well, it was pretty nice when the world kind of slowed down for 2 seconds.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, awesome, man. I mean,
awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. And you've been very influential in my crappy guitar playing. But
keep shredding it, my brother.
I will try.
Well, you got the Black Rifle. Hit the Black Rifle and just get that a couple extra hours of practice.
That's what I do. I just throw down a couple RTDs, ready to drinks, and I'm just...
Yeah, there you go. There you go. It works.
Well, congrats on all your success and being a legend in the space. And we really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Where are you guys located at right now?
Yeah, we hope to catch you on tour, San Antonio.
All right, San Antonio. Well, just, talk to Father Blasco over there and we'll make sure you guys are all taken care of when you come down.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
All right, fellas. Appreciate talking to you guys.
Hey,
thanks, Zakk.
Take care, fellas.
That concludes today's training. Any questions?